Hey everyone! I just wanted to create a tutorial to go over some sketching practice examples as well as utilizing different methods and our relationships and everything you're going to need for your quiz over CAD and over that chapter 3. So this will help with lecture 5 and 6. It will help with your homework chapter 3 and just prepare you for the quiz. So I've provided you a Word document of the parts you're going to be designing. So try them on your own, and if you get stuck, refer to the tutorial. You can rewind, stop, and pause till you catch up. On this problem 3, you'll notice it gives us an actual table telling us how to build this part and the relationships that each line's going to need. That is really helpful. This will help you for a problem that's going to be on your upcoming first exam, as well as just figuring out those homework problems from number 1 to what kind of problems are going to be on the quiz. So look for that on Blackboard, and let's get started. So make sure you open up SolidWorks, go to File, New, and then select Part. I already have a part document open. So right now, I'm just going to choose to sketch on the front plane. So select your plane. Your 4 icons will pop up. Remember to select this one that looks like a piece of paper with an arrow pointing up. It means normal too. So it's going to bring that plane so it is perpendicular in our view. So we are looking directly on it. Much easier to sketch this way instead of having it be offset or tilted. Next, we're going to come up here and go to our Sketch tab. We're going to open a new sketch, and then I'm just going to start with a line segment. If you are in the 7th edition book, this problem is 3.7 and it's on page 143. It's just like your chapter 3 homework. So remember, each one of those grid marks is 1 unit. So it's showing us what our depth's going to be, our height, and our width. So I'm going to start at the origin. Remember, you always need to sketch from the origin, so go ahead and click your line segment. And I'm just going to do the basic shape of this part, and then I'm going to put my units and dimensions in after. So I have a straight line segment, then a vertical line segment. I come back a little ways. You can see as I'm creating these line segments that SolidWorks is creating relationships like horizontal lines, vertical lines. I'm going to zoom out by using the roller on my mouse. Bring this line back over. You can see that also when we line up with an edge that SolidWorks brings us these hidden lines just to make sure that we are lined up correctly where we want to be. It's like shorthand, so it makes it a little easier, especially if you want to draw straight lines. Now this one just comes and is at an angle, and then we connect it all the way back to our beginning line. So you can see as I close those line segments that the part became shaded. I'm going to hit OK. So here we have our automatic relationships, vertical line segments. When you just hover over a relationship, it will show you which line it is for. We have horizontal, another vertical, horizontal, vertical, vertical, and then coincident. That means our point is connected to that origin. So now the fun part. We have our basic shape. Let's go ahead and start dimensioning it. So still under your Sketch tab, come up to Smart Dimension. I'm going to start by dimensioning my longest side and then work my way around counterclockwise. So just select that line segment. Make sure you're not selecting the actual midpoint. That will just give you a lot of errors. Select the whole line segment itself and bring that out. I'm going to create this part in inches since that's what my part document is already in. But remember that if you needed to change your part document window, you can either put in the value and then specify what units you want and then change the part document window, or change it before you even begin. So if I count my line segment starting at the origin at 0, 0, 0, I am moving up in the Y direction 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is going to be 6 inches. So you could specify this be millimeters so you wouldn't have to update it. Remember, you can look on your toolbar and change what your dimensions or units are as well, and this will change it for the whole part document window. So as long as you are in inches or millimeters, that's what we work with in this class. To begin with, you do not need to specify your units every time you dimension a part unless it's using a different dimension. So make sure when you open your part document window that you are first checking whether you're building your part in inches or millimeters. You need to be building all your Lego pieces in millimeters, and then your homework, quizzes, lecture work, the directions will state if they need to be in inches or in millimeters. Since this is just some practice, I'm just going to build it in inches, so we can just leave it like that. Next, I'm going to dimension this bottom line segment. So once again, I'm just selecting the line segment, pulling my dimension down. If I'm starting at the origin, I can see that this is 2 units over. You'll see how it moved my line in, even though these were lined up to begin with. Now I'm going to dimension this line segment. You can see it's only 1 unit up. This line segment is also 1 unit. So just keep working your way around till you've dimensioned all of your parts. Now I can add in a dimension to this line segment to make it 1 unit, but I'm going to save it because I want to show you guys how we can create the actual relationships here. So I'm going to skip this line. You can't see it too well because of where this dimension's placed. I'm going to just dimension this line segment right here. This one's a little trickier to see, but if you just go from where your edge quits being vertical, you'll have 3 units. Sorry, I meant 2. 2 units. Okay. So now that we have all our basic dimensions in, go ahead and hit OK. We're going to add in a relationship right here. So we can either, I'm just zooming in by using the roller on my mouse, we can add in a relationship that this line has the same length as this line, or that this line lines up with this line. I'm going to do that since this line is already black because this one is still blue. You can see on our toolbar, our editing toolbar, that our sketch is underdefined. So go ahead and select that line segment. Now there are 2 ways to do this. There is a longer way and a shorter way. So I'll show you the longer way first, then the shorter way. So you select your line segment, you come up under your sketch tab and come over to this icon, Display Delete Relations. You can click down and add in Add Relation. Since we already have that line highlighted, I'm going to select this bottom line because it's the one I want to create the relationship with. Now you can either select from the added relationships here. Normally they give you the ones that are suggested. So I'm going to select collinear. You'll see that that snapped it so those lines are lined up together. I'm going to hit OK. Once I did that, you can see our sketch turned black. On the bottom it says it's fully defined. So now the shortcut to that, if I undo what I just did, is I just grab the line segment, then hold down the Control key on your keyboard, select the second line segment, and then that relationship display properties automatically pops up. And then I could hit collinear again and hit OK. So that's just the shortcut, is using the Control key on your keyboard. Then you don't have to go and scroll through your sketch toolbar. So now that our sketch is fully defined, you always want to make sure your sketch is fully defined before moving on, just so you eliminate future problems. We can extrude this. So I have my sketch. I can come over to my Features tab and hit the extruded boss/base icon. Now we're going to need to count how deep our depth is according to the z-axis. So I'm going to just measure. We start at 0, 0, 0. You can see our first corner goes back 1 unit, and then the second corner back 2 units. So it is going to be 2 inches deep. We can leave our direction 1 as blind since this is our first feature and hit OK. You'll see a preview of that, and there's our first piece. So like your homework, you would just save this as the problem number, either the B or E letter, and extrude. Now to help you guys and save you a lot of time, we can use the same sketch to create a revolve feature. So once you save this, so I'm just going to go File, Save As. This is just SolidWorks. Machine Practice. Number 1, Extrude. So there my extrude part is saved. So now I'm going to come over to my feature tree manager, select that feature, right click, and I'm going to delete the feature. I'm still left with the sketch, but can you see how this is going to help us? So I wanted to go and create this tutorial because we haven't worked with revolves yet. So I'm going to bring that sketch normal to. Now with a revolve, I can create a center line here that my sketch will revolve around, or I can just use this outside edge and revolve it around itself. I cannot pick something that's in the middle of it, so you have to either choose an outside edge or create a new edge to revolve around. Now if I create a hidden line here and I could set a dimension between my solid edge and hidden line, I could create this revolve to have a hole in the center. Since I just want it to be a solid piece, I'm going to leave my sketch how it is. Nothing needs to be changed because the sketch is the same size, and go to the Features tab. Now I'm going to select the revolved Bosch/base icon. For my axis of revolution, go ahead and select the outside edge, and you can see a preview. You can change your degrees, like in your homework. I think some of them are only 180. And see how it changes that revolve from your sketch. Some are 270. This part itself is going to be 360. So type in 360 and hit OK. Now we have our revolved sketch. And we didn't have to create our revolve feature, and we didn't have to create a new sketch. So it saves a lot of time. So once you do that, and then you'll just go ahead and go to File. Now Save As, remember, because we changed this part. It's the same name, except for extrude, it's going to say revolve. Now you guys can do your homework 3 problems. And let's move on to the second sketch I have. So I'm going to come up to New. Select New Part again. I'm going to stay in inches, so make sure your part document window is in inches. And I'm just going to sketch this on the top plane to begin with, because if you look at the part, the rocker arm gasket, we're looking down. So we know that this is the top plane. And bring it normal to. So once again, select your plane and then the normal to icon to bring it perpendicular to your view. Now for this one, I'm going to start with my inner circles. So you go ahead and open a sketch, select the circle icon, and I'm going to have my circle be connected to my origin. So select it down. Since I already have the circle sketch open, I'm going to create 2 more. Since this part is going to be extruded all the same length, our sketch can be all done in one sketch. If we needed multiple extrudes at different depths for this, we would have to create multiple sketches. You cannot create different depth extrudes in the same sketch. Now let's smart dimension these. So our largest circle has a radius of 2. Oh, that's the arc. Make sure you're reading it right. It has a diameter of 3. Then our smaller circle has the diameter of 0.75, and if you read it, it has diameter 0.75 times 2. You are not multiplying this value by 2. Instead, it is stating that both of these holes are the same size. So it's a shorthand. Now we know that this hole from this midpoint, so select the midpoint, and our center midpoint have a distance of 2.5 from one another. We also know that the distance from our two smaller circles, so go ahead, smart dimension from that midpoint to this midpoint, has a distance of 5. Then hit OK. So I'm also going to add in a relationship at this point. I'm going to create a horizontal relationship between my circles because you can see that they are lined up. Also, if you look at the bottom, you can see the different relationships as well on the Word document. So go ahead, select this midpoint, hold the Control key down, select the midpoint of our larger circle, and once again select the midpoint of our smaller circle, and go ahead and hit that horizontal relationship. You'll see that those are now fully defined because I am connected to my origin. I have their overall shape dimension plus their placement. And go ahead and hit OK. So now we can start on our outside sketch. So still within the same sketch, go ahead and select this line segment. Now I'm going to show you another shorthand trick that's pretty nice. So let's just kind of start on the bottom here because this is where there's going to be a straight line segment. So select down and then create that just straight line segment. Now instead of going back up to my toolbar and constantly switching between the line segment and then my arc, you'll notice that if you bring your pencil out for another straight line, you can bring it back to that endpoint and it now will have the arc for you. So that will just save you time so you're not constantly going to your sketch toolbar and selecting different icons. So go ahead, hit that down. It goes back to being a straight line. So draw out our next line segment. So instead of a straight line, go back to that endpoint and bring it around. Then we have that arc again. Now another straight line. Back to that endpoint for that second arc. A straight line, then back to that endpoint, and we'll just finish this part off with another arc. So it looks really wonky. We haven't added in the rest of our relationships or our dimensions. I just like to do the basic sketch so you're not constantly switching between sketching and smart dimensioning. It makes it a little easier. Just remember to always work in one direction. You can do it either way you want. I prefer to go counterclockwise. So I start on my left side and work my way all the way around. So now I'm going to click in my Smart Dimension. The thing with Smart Dimensioning arcs is sometimes they can get really wonky fast. So they'll get extremely large or small, especially if you don't have relationships. You'll notice that some tangent relationships popped up, but only on one side of our line segments. Now you need them on both lines, so you can see if I zoom in, this arc just goes smoothly into that straight line because of that tangent relationship. Whereas if I zoom in right here, there's no tangent relationship and you can see that arc kind of bubbles out. So let's go ahead and start with our arc radius. So the radius of this outside arc is 0.9. It has the shorthand of times 2 as well, so that means this outside arc is going to be 0.9 as well. Now our larger arc radius on the bottom is 2, so I'm just selecting those line segments and smart dimensioning my part. And we know that this part is symmetrical, So go ahead and smart dimension this arc as well to being 2. And those are all the dimensions we have besides the thickness. So go ahead and hit OK. So now comes the fun part. You can bring this out a little bit just so it looks a little better and your circles are all on the inside. Let's go ahead and add in some relationships. So to begin with, I'm going to add in tangencies where they are missing. So this straight line creates a tangent arc with this arc, but I don't have one on this side. So I'm going to select that arc, hold my control key down, and select this line segment. And go ahead and add in that relationship of it being tangent and hit OK. Just work your way around. I have the tangent relationship here, tangent on both sides, so that one is good. Tangent relationship here, tangent on both sides, so that is good. So I'm just creating this tangent relationship on both sides of the endpoint of my arc. So I'm just missing this last one. So go ahead, hit that arc, hold your control key down, select that line segment, and hit our tangent relationship. So now it all flows smooth, but it's still pretty shifted. So we need to go ahead and add in some more relationships. If you look at that bottom picture I provided, it shows you some of our arcs are going to be concentric to one another. So let's start on this side. So select this arc, hold your control key down, and select that outer edge of our circle. Go ahead and hit your concentric relationship. That just means that that circle and that arc are going to share a midpoint. You can see that it snaps it into place. That line turns black because now it's fully defined. When you're sharing a midpoint, the thickness between your arc and your circle will always remain equal. Let's add in another relationship over here. Remember, don't select the midpoint, just select the line segment. So I'm selecting that outer arc, hold control down, select my smaller circle, and I'm going to add in that concentric relationship again and hit OK. So I have tangencies and concentric relationships. Let's go ahead and add in one more relationship. So I'm going to select this top outer arc, hold down my control key and select my larger circle, and I'm going to add in a concentric relationship right there and hit OK. So as we're adding in these relationships and have our dimensions, our part is turning black. We still have this bottom area that is blue. Our toolbar says it's underdefined. So let's select this bottom arc, hold down control, select our larger circle, and select that concentric relationship as well. Remember, you can always come up to the Display Delete Relations on your Sketch tab and select down and add relationship as well if you're not comfortable using the shorthand keyboard control key. Now you can see with all those relationships, my part is now fully defined. I have all my dimensions in, all my relationships. If you wanted to double check what they are, remember, just hover over them. Here's our tangent, here's our concentric. So you can see all that material in between these circles and arcs are the same, giving us a nice even piece. If you also didn't like the line segment shorthand, you can come up to your sketch toolbar, select line, you can hit OK once you create a line segment, and then you can come up here and select our arcs. You can choose center point, tangent, or 3-point. Try working with tangent the most. 3-point will lead you in the wrong direction, especially in this kind of part. And then just keep clicking back and forth between those icons to create your final piece. That's why I like the shorthand, because it's saving you time. So now that our sketch is fully defined, go ahead and go to that Features tab. Now we want to extrude it to a thickness of 0.10 inches. So hit that extruded base. Our depth already comes up to 0.1. We can leave this direction as blind. You can see that these circles are not going to be highlighted. If they were highlighted, the whole piece would either extrude just the circle you select, the other sketch the outer side sketch you select or the inner circle, so it'd be a solid piece. Since we do not want this to be a solid piece, we don't want to select these contours. So make sure that your circles are not selected and only this outer shell is, and hit OK. If you selected a circle, you'll see it won't appear. So go ahead, select this boss extrude, and come up to your edit feature. I'm just left clicking on each of these. I'm going to select that circle. You can see it turns blue, showing that it's not going to have an extrude with it, and hit OK. Here is our final part. It looks great. Go ahead and save that. SolidWorks sketching practice number 2. And this is a rocker arm gasket. Okay, now that it's saved, let's move on to problem 3. So I wanted to show you this one because J is showing we have an angle between those two lines. This is going to help you with a problem on the quiz. Hint, hint. So since I feel like I'm looking directly on the front plane, go ahead and select that front plane and bring it normal to. I just opened a new part document. Make sure we're in the right units. So we are sketching this in inches. Now go to your sketch tab, open up a new sketch, and just select your line segment. I'm starting at the origin. I'm going to create that line segment for A. So it's just a horizontal line. I'm going to do the shorthand, go back to my endpoint to create that arc where B is, have my horizontal line for C, another horizontal line for D. Now we have this angle for E. Then we come over to about here for F, straight line down for G. Go back to your endpoint, create that arc for H, and then bring a straight line back down to the origin, and make sure you are clicking on all the endpoints for K. So now you can see our sketch is all the way outlined. So let's start smart dimensioning. So select that smart dimension. So if you're looking at the base extrude, go ahead and select that bottom line segment, bring it down, and we are saying at 0.5. Now, I'm going to exit my smart dimensions for a minute. If you read ahead, you'll see that 0.2, our variable, which is given to us by the main X on the top of this sketch, is going to be changed. It's going to change from 2 to 5. So that means we need to be able to do this easily. So we need to create some global variables. This is going to be new, and I go over it in other tutorials, so keep an eye out for those. So go ahead and come up to your toolbar, go over to Tools, go down to Equations, and we're going to create our first global variable. This is just going to be X, and we're going to start with it being the smaller size of 2. You do not need to select your units since we're in a part document window that is already using inches. I'm just double checking that we're not using any other global variables. We're just changing X. We do have a fixed point of Y, so I'm going to add that in. You don't have to, but you can. So you just type in your value or variable, tab over. You do not need to do the quotation mark. SolidWorks will automatically do that. And now I'm going to add in that 0.50 and hit OK. So right here, now let's start smart dimensioning again. So select your smart dimension icon and work your way around counterclockwise. So this arc for B has a radius of 0.5. Now for C, we have to read all of our steps here. We're going to be using our Y dimension to select for C. So we're going to skip it for right now. We know that our dimension from this line segment D to our top point right here is using that global variable Y that we put in. So instead of typing Y, or what the distance is of 0.5, we're going to utilize our global variable. To do that, you have to enter the equals sign. So hit equals. Once you do that, this drop-down menu will pop up. Select your global variable, and I'm going to select Y. Then hit OK. If your global variable is utilized correctly, it will appear with a summation sign before it. If it does not have a summation sign, you need to do it again. And you can just double click, select equals, and then your global variable value. It also will have the world in front of it. Now, let's go ahead, add in that global variable X for this top line segment. So once again, I'm selecting the line segment, hit equals, our global variable X, and OK. Now I want you to be aware that there is a dimension right here between these two line segments. This is J, and it is 62 degrees. So to create that, select the line segments you want to create your angle in between. So I want it between this line segment and this line segment. Once you select both line segments, you're able to create your angle. We want it to be an inner angle. This is going to be of 62 degrees. You do not need to change the units because it automatically will come up as an angle. Hit OK. Now we need to specify our heights. So we know that the overall height, so select your top line segment and your bottom line segment, is given to us at 2.20 and hit OK. We also know that we have a height from the midpoint of this arc to this bottom line segment. So I'm just selecting both of those, and that's given to us as 1.5. I just want to remind you, when you are doing angles, select the line segments you want in between those angles. If I were to have a rectangle line out here and a top edge right here, I would also want to create a midpoint or a hidden line using my line conventions of center lines right here. And I would sketch my dimension and angles from that. Also create relationships. So you can always use your center lines. It's just used to help you sketch, and it doesn't affect your design, especially if it's inside of one another. So let's go ahead and make sure we have all our dimensions. So we have our total height, we have our height to our midpoint of our arc, we have our length right here, we have our arc on the bottom, we have our length from this line segment to our top point, and we have our overall width plus our angle. So it looks like we have all our dimensions, but our part is not finished. So I'm going to zoom in, make sure all your endpoints are connected if they look a little weird. Let's start by adding in some relationships. So looking at this part, I can see that I need to add some tangent relationships to this arc. So I'm going to select my horizontal line, hold down Control, and select this arc, and enter a tangent relationship. If your sketch is over-defined, it will come up in red. So let's delete that, find out why, So SolidWorks automatically put in this coincident point of our arc. So go ahead and let's add in that tangent relationship to this other side. So select this line segment, hold down Control and select our arc, select tangent, and hit OK. So you can see that the midpoint here of our arc lines up with this bottom line segment, and SolidWorks automatically put in that relationship. I was not paying attention. So make sure you're paying attention. You can see now that arc flows smoothly. These two lines now are defined. So let's work our way up through the top to see what we can change here. Okay, so go down and look at your table of constraints. You'll see that point 1 is fixed and grounded. A has a horizontal relationship and its length. Arc B is tangent to line C and it gives us its length. You also see that line C is parallel to line A. So go ahead and select that line segment, hold down Control, select the line segment A, and we're going to select parallel. Hit OK. So I'm just going down our constraint type chart for this homework problem. Then we have line D is perpendicular to line C. So go ahead and select that line segment of D, hold Control down, select line segment C, and add in perpendicular relationship and hit OK. Then we can move to line F, which is our top line right here. And it is parallel to line A as well. So select that line segment, hold down Control, select line A, and hit parallel. Now that line has turned into defined. It gives us that height as well if we were not looking at the sketch. Now line G is perpendicular to line F. So I'm going to select line F, hold down Control, select line G, and go ahead and hit perpendicular and OK. Now arc H, which is this arc right here, is tangent to line G. Its center is collinear with line H. And it's 1.5 from A. So we have that midpoint already. So let's go ahead and add in this tangent relationship. SolidWorks already did it for us. So we have that relationship where arc H and line G are tangent. So now we just need to make it collinear with line K. So I'm going to select the midpoint, since that is the center. I'm going to hold my Control key down and select line segment K. You can see that collinear is not coming up. So let's go ahead and figure out why. Try to move your part around. Sometimes SolidWorks won't just snap things into place. So I'm just going to grab this outside edge. You can see I can move it, and as I move it, that arc, or that midpoint of my arc, moves as well. So now let's try to add in that relationship. So select your midpoint, hold down Control, select your line segment, and it's still not wanting to come up. Let's go ahead and select our line K and line D to be parallel to one another. I want to double check. So it is our arc H is tangent to line G and collinear with line K. So we're still able to just move all these parts with themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and select this line segment, hold down my control key and select this end point. I want to create a relationship where this line is perpendicular or vertical with one another. You can see that snap this whole side in. Go ahead and hit OK. Now let's smart dimension this arc, 0.5. Hit OK. Now we can use our line segment. So come up here and select center line, and we can add in a line. So we're just using center line, so this will not mess with our sketch. Now we just want to check that collinear relationship. So you can see by adding in this vertical relationship here, our part now is fully defined. Go ahead and make sure that this line is collinear with this line. Since it all comes up, that's good. Hit OK. So once your sketch is all defined, go ahead and extrude it. So go to Features, Extrude, our thickness is 0.25, hit OK. And here is our part with the length of 2. So I'm going to select this front face, hit Normal 2, so you can see our length here, we're using 2. So go to your equations, right click, go to Manage Equations, and now change that X variable to 5 because it wants to make sure that we use the right equations and global variables. Hit OK. No errors come up, and you can see that your part now is the larger of the two. So we're not creating two parts, we're just changing up our global variables. You can go back to your equations, select it by hitting the right mouse button, go to Manage Equations, and we can change it back to what we started with of that length of 2 inches. So once your part is built, go ahead, File, Save As. Once again, we're going to have this be our SolidWorks sketching practice number 3. And this is stamping. And hit save. So I hope these tutorials helped you. I know they're pretty long. You don't have to go through every one of them. I just wanted to show you some different methods on how to create sketches and your extrudes plus revolves to help you with your homework from chapter 3, as well as prepare you for the quiz. The quiz is going to feature some multiple choice questions plus a SolidWorks sketching problem. So you won't need to utilize your features of extrude and revolve, but you are going to need to utilize your Smart Dimension tool. You're going to need to add in relationships and center lines to reference from. So if you have any questions, please get a hold of me and I'll be happy to help you.